Miss Safiyyah Sabreen Sayyed. If you're online, please come up, unmute yourself, and start your presentation. Yes, I can see you now. You can start your presentation. She has a topic of contributions of Dr. Muhammad Iqbal to the Islam and Science discourse. Please start your presentation. Please allow her to share her screen as well. All right, you're all done. All done.
Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Salatu wassalam ala Rasulihil Kareem. Amma ba'd. I'm going to be discussing the contributions of Dr. Muhammad Iqbal to the Islam and Science discourse. This is going to be the agenda. We're going to go through Dr. Muhammad Iqbal as a person, as a revolutionary, his methodology, his starting premise, his pursuit of the ultimate nature of reality. What solution did he bring forward for the mystery of time, religion and science, and finally evolution? Now, obviously, everyone knows one of the most influential thinkers of the last century, that's Iqbal. And he sought to contemporize the religious thought in a world dominated by scientific fervor. The most powerful voice to call for an intellectual revival in the Muslim world. His genius was in the fact that he represented this middle road between the conservatives and the modernists. He was the middle road where he wanted to creatively engage with the current trends based on the core principles of the Quran and the Sunnah. His methodology was that the Quran is not a static, finite text. The meanings and the explanations of the Quran could not have been exhausted by the earlier generation of Muslim scholarship. So new meanings can come out of the Quran in specific spatio-temporal context. Therefore, the door of ijtihad or independent reasoning must always be kept open. Now, the question between religion and science is, what are we all seeking? That is the ultimate nature of reality, both religion and science. And he says that religion and science are seeking the same thing. It's just that religion insisted on the necessity of a concrete experience in religious life, even way before science learned how to do this. Now, how does he start building his argument? There's a step-by-step process. So he starts with the first premise. Where do you start from? You want to reach a place that is the ultimate nature of reality. So where do you start from? He says it's the conscious self, but he doesn't assume that. He gives you the reason why we should start from there. So he critiques materialism, sense perception, reductionism, mechanism. These are not capable to teach us, to get us close to the ultimate nature of reality. They work in the world for science, but the ultimate nature of reality, the theory of everything, that's not how you get to. So he echoes the views of William Carr when he says that how can the intellect, which is a mode of apprehending reality, be itself an evolution of something which only exists as an abstraction of that mode of apprehending, which is the intellect. So you can see the circular argument there is contradictory. So if nothing works, what is that one thing with which we interact with reality and it can't be doubted? What's that one thing? He says it's our conscious self. That's how we are interacting with reality. And that is something that we can't doubt. So you can see a very Ibn Sina's flying man experiment, Ghazali's methodological doubt, Descartes, cogito ergo sum. But he differs from them when he dissects this conscious self into two. You have the efficient self, the self right now at work. I'm speaking to you. I know time is passing. I'm in localized space. But there's a part of ourself, and every one of us has this, that is the appreciative self, which is revealed in deep meditative states, dream states, and where we experience non-seriality of time, non-locality, spacelessness, timelessness. And because that's from ourself, we're getting this experience, that means we have reason to believe that the ultimate nature of reality would also be spaceless, timeless, beyond space, beyond time, and obviously beyond matter. So he says the ultimate nature of reality has to be spiritual. Let me give you an example how timeless. This idea of non-serial time looks like pure time. He calls it. It looks like he does tafsir of this ayat. All things we have created with a destiny, a qadar. Our command was but one, swift as a twinkling of an eye. So for Allah, the entire process of creation, it could be billions and billions of years. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's just one moment in the life of the divine, non-serial time. And that is what he calls taqdeer. Taqdeer is the collection of all of the possible, probable, actual moments and events that would happen from moment one to moment last of the universe, all put together, and that's what taqdeer, according to Iqbal, is. And therefore, now we can see that the universe, according to Iqbal and based on the Quran, is not a thing. It's not a thing in void. It's an act. There is a cosmological process. There is a progression. We're moving towards something. And it's not random. It has teleological ends and purposes. And therefore, if it has a purpose, it means that it's permeated by intelligence. So let me give you an overview of what all we discussed. He critiques the scientific methodologies. He takes the conscious self as the starting premise. He reveals that the appreciative self is the one that reveals reality is beyond space, time, matter. The universe functions according to this taqdeer, the qadar, that's what the Quran says, and it's an act. The universe is an act, not a thing. The historical cosmological progression reveals the universe has a purpose. It's not blind, it's not random. Therefore, purpose means it's permeated by intelligence. There's somebody behind it. Therefore, the most important statement is that the ultimate reality is a conscious self, the absolute ego. That's what he calls the divine self. That's his argument for the divine. Now, in such a scheme, obviously, now we can appreciate the pursuit of science is worship. It's ibadah. And he's very close to the Ash'ari theologians in this point, who understood nature and physical phenomena to be sunnatullah. So what character is to the human self? Nature is to the divine self. We see that in the physical world. And so he identifies that the Quran had this empirical attitude, which engendered in the followers, the early Muslims, this feeling of reverence for the actual, and that made them the founders of modern science. Also, the inductive method, which is indispensable to the scientific method, is a blessing bestowed on the world by the Holy Quran. Naturalism, empiricism, we hear atheists talking about these things, right? For Iqbal, these are indispensable tools of a Muslim to reach God. I mean, there you see a Muslim completely turns the argument over. The mystery of time, we have to understand the only reason why quantum physics and general relativity cannot be reconciled is the issue of time. Time becomes, that's the issue, the Big Bang moment. We can't understand what happens at that moment. But for Iqbal, the methodology is first you solve the issue of time, then you progress with all the other explanations. That's what he does. Finally, evolution. This is not, Iqbal was not trying to fit evolution into Islam, but he was trying to read Quran in a way which was the truest to the spirit of the Quran, where the universe is not a static, thing, but it's an act. So creation, according to the Quran, is an interplay of two acts of God. You have the khalq, creation, and amr, which is directive command. And God creates according to that. But you cannot direct or command a non-conscious recipient. The recipient has to be conscious. Therefore, the universe of the Quran is not dead. It's teeming with consciousness of God. It's alive. And so Iqbal asked this question, then how can we understand matter then? If this is the case, how do you understand matter? He says, matter is just a colony of sub-egos, proto-consciousness of lower order that receive their directive command from God from within. When they join in to a certain degree of coordination or sophistication, they reach a threshold point due to that amr of God, and that's when higher consciousness or life emerges. So he readily accepts the idea.
Try to conclude.
Yes, so I'll go to the conclusion. Now, Al-Jahiz, Ibn Miskawayh, and all of these. His evolution is an ongoing process. And finally, in conclusion, we see in Iqbal there is not a topic of philosophy that he hasn't covered, he hasn't explained in his lectures. And what he does is he summarizes whatever came before him, proposes solutions, and then also charts the way forward for future generations of Muslim thinkers. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.